This video is now in session, and let's compare the Democratic Party and the Republican Party to the rest of the world. So as you can see right here, this is a chart that has all of Western Europe's parties and as well as Canadian parties. Right here is the median party, so there are an equal amount of parties to the left as there is to the right of this median party line. And as you can see right here, there are a wider range of conservative party ideology rather than liberal parties. You can see that extends from here to here, while this extends from the median party line all the way to Swiss People's Party, which is the furthest right of all the parties in this chart. So as you can see, the Democratic Party is pretty close to the mean party, I'd say, of the liberal ideology, but the Republican Party is very far away from the mean, which I would say is around here. And this has changed over the years. If we looked at the 1982 election, this is really a midterm election, they started off around here with Reagan as their president. And then you can see that it's gone further to the right, and it's also gone more and more populist. You can see that here George W. Bush is elected. He's certainly not a populist, but he has a bit, but his movement has gone more to the right as he becomes president, and you can see this shoots up in terms of the populist ideology with the Tea Party movement, and after the Tea Party movement, all it does is make the Republican Party further to the right until the 2016 election, where Donald Trump was elected president, and from here it's gotten more and more populist for the Republican Party. Meanwhile, it's been pretty stagnant for Democrats. Now, albeit it has moved a lot to the left since the 2000 election, but that was mainly to conform to what the median party is. The Democratic Party used to be a lot more conservative, and the Republican Party used to be a lot more moderate compared to now. And the thing is, the Republican Party is pretty special because the Republican Party is one of the only mainstream parties around the world that's this far to the right. If you look at all the other mainstream parties, you have the Conservative Party of Britain right here, you have the Conservative Party of Canada right here, and then you also have other places here where around here is the Christian Democratic Union, which is in Germany. The Christian Democratic Union and the Christian Social Union, which is around here. This is Angela Merkel's party, if you don't know. The Christian Democrats right here, and you have the Center Party. You have, I don't think the Center Party of France is right here where Macron is, since this article was made before then. Actually, it wasn't. But nonetheless, the Republican Party is special in that it's very far to the right. And that makes the median party, that makes the mean of these two parties different compared to the other parties, compared to the median party line right here. So the average of these two parties' ideologies would be around here. And what that does is it moves the political ideology further to the right as the Republican Party goes further to the right. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party has stayed relatively center-left. So as the Republican Party moves more to the right, this kind of mean party line will move to the right as well. And that's been pretty effective for Republicans in the short term, in some ways, in that they've portrayed the Democratic Party as this kind of far-left party, even though they're really just a center-left party. Meanwhile, they tread more and more to the right, so it seems like the Democratic Party becomes further to the left, since the mean party line is since I guess the distance between these two parties is shifting and growing and growing. So that is what the Republican parties have been doing, and it's not good for them though long term. A conservative party does not win long term like this. And while the United States is different from Western Europe or even Canada, it's still political trends are still universal, and it's still in some ways the same in Canada as it is for the United States. So if we take what if we take the Conservative Party of Britain and Canada and compare that to the Republican Party, then we see that both of these parties have been able to get strongholds in their respective countries because of their more moderate stances, while the Republican Party has reduced the amount of people it has in its party because of its shift to the right, and that's not good for them in the long term, because it will signal to suburbanites that that they are more inclined to switch to the Democratic Party long term, and that's bad for the Republican Party, because if you saw my video that I made of a few days ago, then you'll know that without the suburban parts of America, then the Republicans would never win in future elections. So what they should be doing then is moving to the left. That said, it's not what they're doing. They're moving more and more to the right, and they're moving into a more populist kind of party. And the problem with that is, even though, again, it works in the short term, in the long term, it's not a good idea for them to become a complete populist party, since it makes Congress look less like a legislative chamber and more a legislative body and more of a publicity area, of a place for public figures. And a lot of Republicans have already embraced this. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a perfect example of Republicans embracing that kind of that kind of thought. But at the same time, that's just not what Congress is supposed to do. So it's ultimately going to backfire them if they don't move closer to something similar of the Conservative Party of Canada. And if we directly compare these Conservative parties to the Republican Party, then their ideologies are actually pretty different. Both of these parties are for climate change regulations. They're for fixing climate change, but the Republican Party is against it. Both of these parties are for background checks. Republicans, though, are against it. And this is the differences in ideology for the conservatives around the world. The Republican Party is just further to the right than other parties. And this is a thing that can be easily solved. If the Republican Party just moved further to the left and more moderate, then it would make them a much more popular party in comparison to the Democratic Party. If we compare parties around the world, usually liberal parties are in the minority and conservative parties are usually in the majority. If we look at Brazil, there's a conservative populist currently lead in Brazil. If you look at Britain, Boris Johnson has been the prime minister for some time now, and since World War II, the Conservative Party in Britain has been in power for 44 years in comparison to the Labour Party of Britain's 30 years as the leader of Parliament and as well as holding the Prime Minister position. If we look at the Conservative Party of Canada, it's gaining in seats. If we look at the Conservative Party, the National Party of Australia, it's had the majority for some time now, and they've been in a pretty, even though it's a very narrow majority, they still have a majority in a pretty democratic country. If you look at Germany, it's getting further, if you look at Germany, it's pretty conservative with the Christian Democratic Union, and that shows how that shows how Republicans in the U.S. can be very successful at getting majorities in the U.S., but at this point, it seems less and less likely that they'll get a strong majority if they keep moving to the right. And that is the point that I'm trying to take away from this graph right here, and as well as this graph provided by The Economist. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.